Hey there. So, it is a good week to be able to talk about service. And, sometimes, not sometimes, but for the last week or so, I've been, trying to figure out a way to make this, better. Because when we talk about service, it's really hard just to talk about it for me. Because service is this action word, right? It's not something that you just say and you can't just do anything with. You have to be able to show it. It's not something we can just talk about. We have to be able to go out and do it. But I wrestle with this because it's not just about whether or not it's not just about whether or not sorry for the improper grammar, it's not just about whether I can show you what service is, or Dave can show you what service is. It's about you guys showing what service is. That's the point of us teaching about it. We don't just want to say these words so that they go out into YouTube land and whether they reach your ears or not. We aren't just saying them to say them. We are saying them so that way we can actually move forward with them, so that we can actually do something with them. Well, today we're going to be talking about a true story that you can find in John chapter 6. And John chapter 6 is this really, really interesting part of Scripture. I say this every week, but man, guys, Scripture is so amazing. Anyways, I digress. This passage that we're going to be into today, there are a whole bunch of passages out there where you can read things like, and they're following Jesus was this great multitude of people, this great crowd. Jesus was surrounded by this large crowd of people over and over and over and over again. We can read that kind of stuff. The closest thing that I can think of to kind of help us understand this is, have you ever been on a playground and somebody suggested a game and everybody just crowded around that person they wanted to play the game? Or maybe you were at a camp and the leader, they were like, hey, let's go and do this. And this all of the kids, just run after that person. Okay? Maybe you've seen that. That's the closest thing that I can come up with that maybe you guys can understand what is going on in this passage. Because what is going on, I'm going to try and have this picture of I have a crowd of people behind me so that you guys can have an idea of what's going on. But in John chapter 6, here's what we read. We read that Jesus has gone to this certain region, and this large crowd of people is following them. I'll tell you the number here in a second. But this large crowd is following them. It's getting to be around lunchtime, and the disciples, Jesus' closest followers, they're starting to get a little bit anxious. They're starting to get a little bit nervous about what's going to be happening. Maybe they're starting to hear the crowd grumble about being hungry. Maybe they're getting kind of worried and hungry themselves. One of the guys, Philip, who's familiar with the area of where they're at, he's like, Jesus, there is nowhere around here that's kind of get us the food to be able to feed all of these people. It just can't be done. And Jesus, I almost wonder if Jesus says this with a smile on his face. And some people, their eyes just kind of sparkle when they kind of talk to you, when they ask you questions. Jesus, he asks his disciples this. I'm gonna read it here. Okay? He says, all right, where can we buy bread for these people to eat? And so Philip, the guy who's familiar with the area, he's like, Jesus, there's nowhere. Besides there being nowhere to buy this much bread, it would cost half a year's wages to buy enough bread to feed everybody. Guys, that's a lot of bread, a lot of food. And Andrew, though, Andrew, comes up. Andrew is one of Jesus' followers, and he comes up. Have you ever gone up to somebody to tell them something, and they've asked for a solution to something, like an answer to a question, or maybe a teacher has asked you for an answer to a question, and you're just trying to come up with the best answer that you can, but you know that it's probably not going to work, and you give this answer, and they're just like, what? Why would you ever? Why? Well, Andrew, he says, well, here's this boy, and he has 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. And you can almost hear like you can almost hear him trailing off, as he's saying this, and just thinking, this isn't going to be anything to feed all of these people. Which, by the way, there's 5,000 men in this crowd. Okay, that doesn't include women. That's not counting women. That's not counting kids. That's just counting the men. And so you can imagine, like, let's try and put this into perspective. Almost the whole town of Mount Pleasant following Jesus in the countryside. Can you imagine? And Jesus, you can almost kind of see the twinkle in his eyes, like, watch this, check this out. And so Jesus, he tells his disciples, he says this. He says, have the people sit down. There's plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. And so Jesus, he takes the loaves of bread, he gives thanks, and he hands out the bread to those who are seated, and he gave them as much as they wanted. Guys, this isn't a goldfish cracker and they're done. He gives them as much as they wanted, and then some. Because when they're done, he says to his disciples, go out and pick up the rest. And guess what? They picked up these huge baskets, 12 baskets worth of food left over from this. Guys, I couldn't do anything like that. I'm guessing you couldn't do anything like that. Not anybody I know could do anything like that. Only Jesus could. Because he's Jesus. He's the Son of God. Guys, listen. Just because you're not Jesus, though, doesn't mean that you can't serve like Jesus. See, here's the thing that I want to get across to you about our text here, this passage. Because I think what this passage is trying to tell us is you serve with what you have. It would have taken a big sacrifice from that boy to say, hey, Andrew, hey, dude, because he probably didn't know Andrew's name. Hey, this is what I've got. I've got 5 small loaves of bread, and I've got these 2 fish. But here's what I have. Can you imagine, like, doing that, being the boy, and trying to, trying just to give what you have, not knowing, what's going to happen with it, but just trying to give what you have. And Jesus is able to do so much more with what that boy gave than what that boy could have imagined, than what you or I could have imagined if we were right there. Because if you were to ask me, I would probably have a reaction kind of like Philip, all right? Where, Jesus, there's no way. There's nowhere around here. There's no Burger King down the road. There's no McDonald's. There's no Walmart that we can go to. But Jesus, he's able to serve. And he's able to do this miraculous sign, this miracle, with so little. And guys, here's the thing. You serve with what you have. Maybe for you, it's serving at home. Maybe in the last year you have learned how to read. And so you can read a book to your younger siblings that you wouldn't be able to do last year. And you can do that. And guys, that's a huge help to your parents. That's a huge help to your younger siblings. Guys, that's a big deal. That's a great way to serve. Maybe in the last year you've had a growth spurt, and now you can reach those cabinets up above and you can put away dishes for your family. Guys, that's a big help. That's a great help. It's a great way to serve. Maybe you weren't strong enough last year to be able to drag that garbage can, for your elderly neighbor that struggles every week to take it out and to take it back. Maybe that's a way that you can serve now. Maybe you're strong enough to do that. Talk with your parents, of course. And guys, here's the thing. Our lives, they are full of all these things that we might consider little, that we don't consider all that like big of a deal to serve others. But guys, we just saw how Jesus was able to take something that seemed small. I can't even imagine how small that must have looked to a little kid who's just trying to do his part, is just trying to help. Guys, I hope that you guys will see what Jesus can do with just a little bit of service. Because guys, service is simply lending a hand to help someone else. Guys, that's kind of our talk for this week. That's our midweek chat. I want to leave you with just this overarching thought, that we have for this month. And that thought is from the Bible. It's from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It's our memory verse for our midweek chats for this month. Okay? Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Guys, you might think to yourself, I can't do this. You might not be able to, but God can. And so guys, take heart. Be strong in who God is. Guys, have a great week. Peace out. I'll be praying for you.